In this video, I'll demonstrate the use of the Server Explorer to create a data connection in your project. Using this technique, I can create a connection to a database writing virtually no code. In subsequent videos, we'll learn additional techniques that will borrow from this and will use the connection that we've created here in order to create commands and data adapters and data sets from a connection that we have within Server Explorer. For the purpose of this video, I have SQL Server's Developer Edition installed on my local machine. So what I want to do is create a connection to the pubs database that resides on the local machine installed with SQL Server by default. To begin, I'm going to hover my mouse cursor over the Server Explorer window, and I'm going to select the Connect to Database icon. This will open the Data Link Properties dialog box. The first thing that I need to do is either select from the drop-down list or type in the name of the machine that I know has the instance of SQL Server that I need to create a connection to. The second step is to select the correct login information for this instance of SQL Server for my account. In this case, I use a specific username and password. The username that I've chosen for my instance of SQL Server is simply the SA username that comes by default with SQL Server, which has no password, and I want to save the password and the username within this instance of the data link. The next thing that I need to do is select the database on the server. When I open up this drop-down list box, I'll see a list of all of the databases that are available on this server, and I'll select the database that I'm interested in this case, the pubs database. Finally, I'm going to select the Test Connection button to make sure that my connection to the database works, and as you can see, the test connection succeeded. I'll select the OK button, and I'll select OK once again. Now, all that's happened up to this point is that we've created a connection within the Server Explorer. However, we have not created a connection within our project or within our web form that we're working on currently. To create the connection, I'll simply drag and drop the icon from the Server Explorer to the design surface. In the designer tray to the bottom of the web form, you'll notice that there's a new icon that appears called the SQL Connection 1. This is an instance of the SQL connection that we just created within our web form. What I want to do next is to demonstrate the properties that got set whenever we created the SQL Connection 1 onto our web form designer. Notice here at the top of the properties that a connection string was set, and it's going to be hard for you to see the entire connection string, but the data source is Tabor, that's the server that it resides on. It also has the catalog, which is the main database pubs, and all the other information that we set in the preceding data link properties dialog box. Additionally, here we can change the name of the connection, which I prefer to do, use a name that we're more familiar with. Notice when I did that the icon changed here in the designer tray. And there are other settings that we can view from here, such as the database and the data source. Now, we're not going to be able to modify these in the properties box. What we can do, though, if we need to, are modify these properties and many other properties within the code behind for this given web form. So without writing any code up to this point, we've created a connection to our database. And what we can do now on our web form is go ahead and access our connection to the database by dragging and dropping the button on our web form and accessing the code behind and selecting the con object dot. And notice when we do that the pop-up help appears showing us all the methods and properties that we can access. So, for example, we can access the connection string, and that we can set any of the values ourselves, or just to read the connection string, or one of dozens of methods and properties that are also contained therein. Now, there's another way to create a connection to a data source, this time using the toolbox. However, as you'll probably see in just a moment, this is not quite as useful of a tool, because although you can go to the toolbox data and select SQL connection, drag and drop it into the designer tray, and it creates a SQL connection 1 object for us that we can rename. Unfortunately, what we'll have to do by hand is set the connection string. We'll have to also then in code set the database and the data source. Now, what's interesting is that to the right of this property box, which you can't see right now, but I'll reposition, is that there's a drop-down list box, and this will contain all of the connections that we currently have. So we could select a connection from here or click on this to create a new connection. And we can select all the properties from the data link properties window that we've done before, or simply select the tabor.pubs.dvo and have the exact same connection string that we had in our previous object, the con object that we created. And you'll notice as we scroll down this time that now the Tabor and Pubs database and data source are now populated, and that other properties are populated as well. However, I don't feel like this is as useful because the Server Explorer just makes it just a little bit easier to drag and drop, and you have to fill out a little bit less information. So in this video, we've demonstrated how to use the Server Explorer to create a data connection, and I've also showed you another technique for creating a data connection that's at your disposal if you need it, and that's to use the toolbox to drag and drop a SQL connection object and then be able to set its properties appropriately in the properties box. So we hope that this was helpful, and please understand that this is a precursor of some of the information that's to come. We'll use the Server Explorer again in just a moment in a future video to pull tables from the data source and create data adapters that contain data commands that allow us to get at data sets. And if all this terminology is new, we'll take the time to explain all these things for you and make it a little bit more obvious. But we hope you enjoyed this video, and we appreciate you watching it. Thank you.